Well, hell, man. Let's just do this thing. Are you ready, Kyle?
Yeah, I am
Ready?
ready. I'm ready.
All
I'm
right,
ready,
this is
Reed.
freaking exciting. Oh my goodness. Well, this is exciting. Friends, Romans, country people, welcome to Homicide Life on Repeat, where we rewatch, recap, and relive arguably the greatest and most influential television show of all time, Homicide Life on the Street. My name is Reed Diamond. I play Detective Mike Kellerman, and I am joined, as always, by my partner, the very attractive and beautifully lit Kyle Secor, Detective Timothy Bayless. Hello, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
my
that
gosh.
fabulous intro, Reed.
It's exciting, right?
Yes,
I mean,
it brings tears to one's eyes.
well, I mean, here we are, brother, because we're about to talk about episode 106, Three Men and Adena, a show that always lands itself on the greatest episodes of television lists of all time. And we have a very special guest today, so I'm not going to waste any time. Do you mind if I bring our very special guest on?
No, please do.
What do we got?
Got a guess for you.
What's it for?
All for you.
That's right. What do we got?
Got a guess for you.
Who's it for?
All for you. All for you.
Friends, Romans, country people, David Simon might have written the book, and Paul Attanasio might have written the pilot episode, and perhaps Barry Levinson used his Hollywood cachet to get this show unfettered and on the air. But friends, Romans, country people, there is no doubt that Homicide, Life on the Street is Tom Fontana's show.
Woo!
And we are so honored to have the Don, the man from whom all rivers flow, the great and powerful Tom Fontana.
It doesn't get better than that, Tom. It really doesn't.
I know. I kept thinking you were talking about someone else.
No.
All I wanted to say is I would love to take full credit and fuck Barry, fuck Antanasio, fuck Simon or whatever his name is. I would say the show was as terrific as it was because of the writing and the acting. As I always say, we were too stupid to know that we were doing something original. And the actors, you were all so willing to do whatever stupid thing we wrote. So it was really a partnership of idiots.
That's what this is. This is a partnership of idiots.
I actually thought, Tom, you were going to say, and the actors were too stupid to know that what we were doing was stupid. And
Yeah, pretty much you were. I mean, not Reed. That's why we brought
very
Reed
smart,
in.
man.
We brought Reed in so he could actually explain to you guys what the hell we were doing.
My IQ went way up.
Yeah, I feel like you might be selling yourself a little short because as we stress every week on this show, what you guys did on television had never existed before. And what you brought to this, a network television show, this episode that we're talking about that you wrote and perhaps won an Emmy award for,
Yes, I did.
deservedly so. On a cop show that you've joined onto that's going to have no car chases and no gunfights, you've also decided to do a play.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the whole story. First of all, Barry Levinson, God love him, directed the first episode and set the style and the tone and everything. He insisted that we not hire television directors. He only wanted feature directors. Now, the last television he had done was the Carol Burnett show. I've been working in broadcast television a long time, and I thought to myself, this is going to be a disaster because these feature directors are going to come and think they're going to be treated like feature directors and going to have all the time in the world. And we're going to go into overtime and we're going to go over budget. I was terrified. So Barry and I were, during the shooting of the first episode, we were sitting at Video Village. Kyle was in a scene with a gay hustler or something. Templeton and he were like trying to break the guy. And Barry and I turned to each other and we looked at each other literally because the scene with them was so intense and so rich, and it wasn't a very long scene. We looked at each other and I said, you know, we could do like an old Playhouse 90 where it's just one set, 3 actors. And at that point, we only had 6 episodes ordered. So I thought, oh, and then I can get rid of all the Teamsters. I can start saving money that will have been spent by the feature directors. And he was like, write it. Let's do it, which is always the great thing about Barry, because if it hasn't been done, he definitely wants to try it. And so the irony was when I won the Emmy and I was walking up to the stage, I literally was thinking, if these people only knew this wasn't art, this was commerce. I was doing it to save money. And I have to say, the 3 of you were spectacular. And Martin Campbell, who directed it, the weekend before we started shooting, he spent the entire weekend in the box by himself. And what was extraordinary, and if you watch it, it's so subtle, but it's so brilliant what he did, which is there'll be a section of the piece shot from a specific angle, and he never returns to that angle again because he didn't want the audience to feel claustrophobic. It's like watching a class in directing to see how subtly he just put the camera here, he put the camera here, he put the camera here, he put the camera there. Anyway.
When he did that, it really pulled into focus that thing that we did so often, which was to move actors and have them on one side and then have them on the other.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put that in the box, that's very different than being in the squad room. In the box, it just highlights, what are they doing over there now?
Yeah,
it
yeah.
adds to that, the tension of the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because Kyle is convinced that you told him at his audition that you had written this episode for him, and that was the only reason he agreed to do the show.
This is the bullshit I've been saying for all these years.
Wow.
That's how I've remembered it. You said something like, we're thinking there's going to be an episode that's going to be episode 6, with just 3 men in a box. I went, okay, that's it. But I've thought that
when you auditioned.
Well, when I came in to see you and Barry at the end, I hadn't auditioned. I was just coming in to meet you.
Oh, yeah. Well, by then we might have begun to think about it. Or the drugs you were taking at the time were just really, really too active.
Yeah, no, that's true as well.
For me, it was thrilling because having started as a playwright, to write something that was so theater intense was really quite thrilling. And of course, NBC just hated it, hated the script, hated. And we were like, well, we don't have another script, so we have to shoot it.
You're selling yourself short because watching it and understanding the time frame that you're producing this in, normally if you're writing a play or if you've written a play, you have a chance to workshop it, you might rehearse it. Obviously, you didn't do that, so it's flawless sort of out of the gate. What blows me away is that it completely works, but I know that you weren't able to workshop it or rehearse it or change it in the way that you would adapt a play to these actors. And it's so powerful. And also, in such a short amount of time, you've incorporated so many specificities of Baltimore into it. Just switching him from the fishman from the book to the Araber is a stroke of genius. And bringing in all those little pieces. And I know that you couldn't have been there that long. I want to talk about your process because I love your process. But how quickly were you able to birth this script?
What normally happens with me and writing is I don't have a clue what I'm going to do. I have a kind of notion about, well, maybe it'll end there and maybe in the middle, something like that will happen. I don't know. I don't do cards and I don't start writing until I'm like, all right, I got to go. I got to start. I got to do it. I got to get it down or I'm going to go insane. And that's kind of what happened with 3 Men and Adena. I knew the journey I wanted each of the 3 characters to take over the course of the hour. And that was really a huge guide for me because it was very important for me that the Araber had his moment of triumph before he had his moment of defeat. And he wasn't really defeated, which again, it made NBC so pissed off. They're like, they don't get him at the end. It's an hour of them, and then they don't get him at the end. And I was like, yeah, but in the real story, the Adena Watson, they never got the killer. And we have to honor the death of this little girl and her family by not pretending that we've solved what was a traumatic case.
Well, that's also what's so special about this show, and we talk about this every week, is that you don't understand. If you weren't there in the early 90s on network television, on any cop show, you knew who the good guys were and you knew who the bad guys were, and they got the bad guy by the end. There was a confession on the stand, and it was cut and dry, and you could move on to the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
And to make a show that's visually so arresting and then morally and character-wise ambiguous, the gorgeousness of all of your scripts and the gorgeousness of this show is the ambiguity, and that you don't get your man. And of course, you honored LaTanya Wallace, the real person, but also the fact that maybe he didn't do it, and you don't know, and you have these characters confused. Yeah. In that fourth act, you have this sympathy almost for him, and that beautiful moment of, I'm a man of this age, and I fell in love with an 11-year-old girl, and she's the love of my life. I mean, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
And as you said, you so carefully crafted in that Pembleton's journey to now thinking he's the guy and you going, I don't know. And that's never been on TV. That's been in the movies. And that's what we're trying to stress to people, is that this didn't exist on network television. It was colorful. It wasn't desaturated. And you knew it was black and white. There were no shades of gray.
That line that was highlighted that Risley says about, I'm not sure anymore if I did it or not. That to me just typified how you put everything in the laps of the viewer, saying, you make your choices. Like, I've seen it now in the last week 3 times. And every time I'm dealing with my own bias, and I've seen it. And every time
you
I'm
acted
looking,
it.
Yeah, I know. But you pose such, I think, really important questions throughout the episode of memory, of race, obviously. And
well, the other thing I wanted to say was, I have over the course of my career written a lot of interrogations. So I knew the short version of an interrogation, and this was the first chance I had to really write fully what the life inside an interrogation. There were things, the idea of people getting tired so that he got to the point where he could say, I'm not sure, if I did, because there has to be a sense this is a marathon that we're watching.
And I don't think that we'd ever seen on American television a realistic police interrogation. It's always where they get in your face and they browbeat you and then you confess.
Yeah.
And so to see the subtleties of what they have to do and then to not get him, it's bearing the lead to say that it's revolutionary. It hadn't existed before. Because as we say, now you can watch Homicide and it looks like you guys wrote it and shot it yesterday. It's a show of now. The moral ambiguities, the character ambiguities, and also just the subject matter, now that's ubiquitous. But at the time, it was revolutionary. And to write a realistic interrogation and then them not get it, I doff my cap to the...
And just remember, it was all about the money.
Well, you say it was commerce, but you made art.
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
So you got this idea, say, in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
You're mulling over it for a while, and then you finally sit down to write it. How far out from shooting that would you say that is?
Well, actually, then we had a good chunk of time. It wasn't like I wrote it and we shot it. I wrote it, gave it to Barry, gave it to Yoshimura to get their feedback, then gave it to the network and the studio, which at the time were the same thing, and got their input. And so I would say a month feels right.
Did you make any concessions to the network at all on anything?
No, not that I can remember. In fact, the funny thing is, one of the executives who was particularly nervous, he wasn't like, I hate this, and no, you can't shoot it. He was just like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? And when I won the Emmy, he said to me afterwards, it was so great the way you and I worked together on this script. And I went, that's Hollywood, Jake.
Success has 1,000 authors and failure only one.
When did Moses come into the picture, and how did he?
Well, I probably should not tell this story, but what the fuck?
What the fuck?
Danny Baldwin said to me, my brother Alec loves the show, and would love to do a guest star part in it. And then I thought, well, maybe Alec could do this. But then I made a comment about, there was a movie he made that was based on a Jim Thompson novel that was a remake of a movie that Steve McQueen had made.
The Getaway.
The Getaway, thank you. And for some reason, I was being interviewed, and for some reason that came up. And I said, well, I liked the Steve McQueen version more. And this interview came out just as we were starting to talk to Alec about doing the part. And all of a sudden, Danny comes to me and he goes, my brother's not doing it. My brother's not doing it. And I have to say, the great kismet of casting is the person you think, oh, that'll be an interesting person. You get the person who absolutely should have played it. And Moses was our second choice. And it wasn't like we had a list. Alec fell out. And then I was talking to Lou DiGiamo, the casting director, and he said, what about Moses Gunn? And I was like, oh, man, that's perfect. And I adjusted the script a little bit to fit Moses, that 400 thing that he does to Andre. That was something I changed when he agreed to do the part. I was stunned that he didn't get nominated for a guest actor in a drama.
No, it didn't make sense.
I mean, it's such a crime. It's just such a crime. He was brilliant. And Andre was brilliant. I mean, Kyle was the only really the weak link. It was.
Just to say that, like Moses Gunn, when I heard that he was doing this, I flipped my lid. I just went, oh, him? Because the first time I'd ever seen him was on an episode of Kung Fu back in the 70s.
My God.
He came on the screen. I was in high school or something, and I looked at him. I go, what the fuck is this? What incredible creature is this? And he blew my mind. And periodically I'd see his name over the years. So when he ended up doing this, it was like a hero of mine came on board.
And he passed away not too long after the show aired. So
I recall that there were not issues, but there was like thoughts of like, is he going to be able to do this physically? That there was some sort of things about his energy, that maybe he was getting tired or something. I don't know if I ever saw that, but I remember it was a concern, especially with that last freaking aria that you gave to him, you blessed him with. Okay, they don't cut away from that. Martin stays with that the entire time. That was and he just nailed that. Every single beat of that, Tom. It was brilliant.
It was, from a writer's point of view, it was like Christmas Day working on that episode. Not that there weren't a lot of episodes that we did that I didn't have the same sort of excitement, but I guess in a way it was the first one because it seemed so off balance from, whereas the first 5 are great episodes, but they're a little more like us trying to find our way. And with 3 Men And Adena, it was like, fuck our way. Who knows what our way's There is no way.
But the gift of Moses Gunn is so extraordinary because all kudos to you and Andre. If that actor isn't the right actor.
If that's Alec Baldwin.
Which I'm still trying to process.
It's impossible. That's like an impossibility.
I know, but you have to remember that NBC was like, can you get us a movie star?
Sure. But he didn't have a false moment. And as you talk about that aria, when he does that thing of like strawberries, raspberries, where he's doing the Arab song, how did he even know someone present him with an audio tape of an Araber?
No, I actually did it for him because when I was a kid in Buffalo, we didn't call them Arabers, but they would come with the truck and the guy would go strawberries, raspberries, and the mothers would come out of the houses and they'd buy the fruits and vegetables that they wanted. And so I'm pretty sure I sang it to him.
Yeah.
Incredible. You guys didn't really rehearse, right? Or how?
No, they did rehearse.
And Moses came in, as I recall, a couple days early. And Andre and you had been gracious enough to give us a copy of the script at least a week or so earlier so we could like look at that thing. And Andre and I were on it from that point onward. And then Moses showed up a couple days early and we got him in, I think we were all at Henderson's Wharf.
Yeah. That's
and
right.
He would come up to our apartment, we'd go down to him and we would just go over it. Here's something about that. I knew where Andre and I stood beginning, middle, and end because you wrote it out in such a way, Tom, again, to see it 3 times in a row, 3 times this week, to see how clear the beats are in what happens in our relationship and how we become that, the couple by the end. That was pretty extraordinary. But I didn't know or I didn't think about what he was going to do when I was out of that room. And what he did was that fucking scene where he insinuated himself into Moses' space and became, in essence, the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. Okay. Did you, Tom, go, yeah, that's what I imagined?
No, listen, I know there are a lot of writers who go, I know exactly how this should be played. I'm not one of those writers. In fact, I always say, I know the actor is bad when they take a line of mine and make it worse. And I know an actor is good when they take a line of mine and do it exactly as I imagine. And I know an actor is great when I sit there and go, I'm the fucking greatest writer in the history of the world. I never have any, I mean, maybe a little bit of expectation here or there, but, you know, the joy of working with you all is that I am constantly surprised. And I love being surprised. I mean, the whole process of at least being the showrunner is you write a script and then you have to let it go. You have to give it to the director, and the director has to give it to the actors and the crew. And the reason that I can afford to be that generous is being the showrunner. I get it back in the editing room and I can fix every fucking thing you people did to fuck up my script.
Which there was plenty. We gave you plenty of opportunities for that.
Oh my God. It was extraordinary. I was always dumbfounded looking at what you idiots had done.
What was it? No hood mounts and no gum?
No gum chewing. And no hood mounts. Because the thing is with the hood mounts is, do people know what that is? That's when you put the braces on the side of each car, driver's side and the passenger side. And you put a camera so that you're getting, and we always shot it from the back of people. So it just felt more natural and took a lot less time. The whole key, I think, and that's more about Barry than about me, was that we should try never to stop. We should just keep shooting and figure it out later. Then you're not sitting in your trailer for 45 minutes while we relight and which was another thing. I was worried about the feature directors because I was like, they're going to come in here and they're going to go, no, I see a sunset coming through the window. And whereas it was is the camera on me now? The kind of shock of like, oh, I have to be in this scene full. I can't sit back and just give the lines.
Yeah, that was the best part of it.
Yeah. It was so much fun to watch you all shoot. The energy and the sense of spontaneity that came out of that was just wonderful.
Were you there on the set?
Yeah.
Do you recall changing any lines at all?
I don't, but then again, it was a long time ago.
Yeah. I don't recall it. I don't recall it either.
I can't imagine that I didn't, because once I hear something, I go, oh, wait, that's crap, that line.
And Martin Campbell, much better working relationship the second time around?
I had a great working relationship with him both times. You all hated him.
Yeah.
The problem, what was funny, what was funny about Martin is because he was a screamer. And I would say to him, you know, I don't like screaming on my sets. And the crew finally figured out that when he had coffee with caffeine, he screamed. And when they gave him coffee without caffeine, it was so like zen. I don't know which the crew figured that out, but I was like, thank you. He was a terrific director. He screamed about everything.
And it was interesting because he was your only repeat in the first season.
I liked him. I liked working with him on episode 2. So I didn't have the problem that the actors had. And, I didn't really give a shit what their problem was with him.
He was the director of the famous "we're not going to do the blocking" moment.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you had the biblical parable of whoever doesn't want to be in the scene can be written out.
I will be out in the corridor and you come to me and say, I don't want to be in the scene, and you will be written out. And I waited and waited and waited and waited, and no one came out. And I went back to the writer's building, and for the whole next week, all of the actors came. It wasn't me. It wasn't me that wouldn't do the scene. It wasn't me that wouldn't do the scene. Everybody.
Of course.
Yaphet, Ned Beatty, the two who didn't want to do the scene.
And this begs the question, because obviously this show is so significant for all of us. And obviously we just had the great pleasure of all reconvening for our beautiful reunion, having not seen each other for so long. I think we were able to articulate in that space how important this was to us and how much it meant to us. And most of us, I would say for myself and for Kyle, the height of our creative experiences in our careers. But it occupies a lot of mental space. But the thing is, we all had our own sort of individual experiences. And the joy of doing this podcast is everyone thinks that they were the only one traumatized by it. So everyone who comes on, right? It's been really healing for everyone to go like, this was so creative, but also it left some scars. So we forget, because you were just the big boss, but we forget that, like, had you run a show prior to this?
No.
Exactly.
Right. No.
Oh.
I worked directly under Bruce Paltrow, who couldn't have been a better teacher because he stressed all the right things. And so I was ready to do it. Can I tell the story about the Polito Yaphet story?
Yes.
So literally it's like the first week and we're supposed to shoot a scene outside, but it's pouring rain. And Jim Finnerty, our line producer, comes to me and says, listen, we're flipping the schedule. We're going to shoot on the set. Yaphet and John Polito say they won't come. They weren't called, so they won't come. They were on hold. It said on the sheet, on the call sheet, H. So he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, let me get on the phone with them. Brilliant idea, Tom. I call Yaphet first because he and I actually had a pretty good relationship. And I said, Yaphet, what the fuck? Come on, we're shooting. No, I'm on hold. I'm not working today. And neither is Polito. And I said, Yaphet, I am telling you, you have to work. If you don't work, I am going to have to do something that neither of us is going to like. I have no idea what that was, but I just said it. He said, I'll be right down, because we were all living in Henderson's Wharf. I'll be right down. And I was like, okay. I hang up the phone, and now I'm going, he's going to kill you. He's going to kill you. Yaphet Kotto, his hands are bigger than your head, Tom. He is going to kill you. And so now he's coming down the hall, and I see him coming down the hall, and he's like mean and angry. And I'm sitting there and I go, okay, well, and I stand up, and I literally stand up as tall as I possibly can, like on my tiptoes. I'm like trying to get as tall as he is, which is impossible. And I'm like this, and he walks in and I'm like, yeah. And he starts to laugh. He thinks it's the funniest thing. Here's a guy who could have crushed me like a fucking grape. And he thought I was hilarious because there I am with my chest out on my tiptoes, proving that I'm the boss. And he said, okay, I'll work and I'll get Polito to work. And then they worked.
And that's the thing.
No, that's a good one.
And that was literally the first week.
You seem like you've been doing this for a million years, and you definitely had the stature and the aura of the big boss, but
it was all in the bourbon.
Right. Which is amazing. It was all in the bourbon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you had it in you.
Tattingers. You were not the showrunner on that.
No, Bruce was, but he was letting me be the showrunner without me officially being the showrunner. That's what I'm saying. He was training me. Even during St. Elsewhere, he was training me, though I was a little person on St. Elsewhere. That's where Kyle and I first worked together.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And my favorite show until Homicide, because that was the beginning of great television. We talk about this often, but Hill Street was sort of the first sense that you were going to make important TV on network television. But then St. Elsewhere, there's still scenes from that show that I think about every day as an actor.
It's funny, too, because MTM, which produced Hill Street, pitched Hill Street Blues in a hospital.
Oh, wow.
That was how they sold it. Because back then, if you went to Brendan Tartikoff and said 3 words, and he went, oh, yeah, let's do that. The famous one was MTV Cops, was Miami Vice. I get there and I go, well, it can't be Hill Street Blues in a hospital because they're all out on the street and we are all in the building. It's a whole different rhythm. It's a whole different sensibility. The two shows have nothing to do with each other. We just went at it. I mean, Bruce said, let's make a hospital show that's never been done before. In the same way that Barry wanted to make a cop show that had never been done before.
So, Tom, with Homicide, it was no gunfights, no car chases. If you were to say St. Elsewhere, this is what we did differently, what were like the things that you just wouldn't do on St. Elsewhere?
Everybody dies.
Yeah.
No, we had a lot of people dying. No, wouldn't do on St. Elsewhere or would do that it wasn't done on other shows?
Yeah. Would do that wasn't done on other shows.
I would say we showed the residents as not only flawed, but exhausted. We depicted being a resident in a big city hospital exactly the way it was, as opposed to, oh, it's Marcus Welby, it's Dr. Kildare, it's everybody looks great. And, I remember getting a letter back in the days when you actually got letters, a woman who was furious with us because David Morris's character had a beard growth. Why isn't he shaving? It's disgusting seeing him walk around there with the beard. It wasn't like a full beard. It was just like he hadn't shaved for 2 days or something. I wrote a letter saying, lady, in a world surely doomed by nuclear holocaust, is really the most important thing to you Jack Morris's beard? We were terrible. We would literally call people on the phone if we got like a fan letter that we wanted to. And people would go, oh, no, I really love the show. I really, really love the show. But over time, there are no fan letters anymore.
I love that level of taking it personally. I respect that beyond.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Fontana's on the phone for you right now.
It is funny. There's posthumous kind of fan letters after the show has stopped. Like I've sent you a couple, Tom, of people that have said how much the show meant to them. There's still people out there willing to write at least emails.
Yes,
about
emails, definitely.
Yeah.
I've been getting emails and Instagram posts and stuff like that. There was something great about getting a mail bag full of letters. Somebody actually spent money on a stamp.
I'm not sure if this is how it was, Reed. Maybe you can answer this question the way it is now with likes. Because if an actor got a ton of mail, that proved to the network or whatever that was a character that was, I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Jimmy Stewart famously would spend his Sundays answering all of his fan mail. And in fact, my father in the 40s wrote Jimmy Stewart, and Jimmy Stewart wrote him back. That was the aesthetic. So I remember when you first started, if you had fan mail, you were supposed to personally respond to it. And then I remembered as soon as emails happened, I even remember talking to someone at NBC when we were doing Homicide. They said, one letter is worth like 25 emails. Or the fact that someone took the time to actually put pen to paper and send it, that had much more impact. And now, obviously, that's a lost art. I'm still probably teaching my child how to undress an envelope. And I'd like to bring it back. But
one of my heroes was Joe Namath, and I wrote the New York Jets, and I got back not a personal letter from him, but a shit ton of autographed stuff. Like they sent me a package that was full of pictures of not just him, but all their other players. If you fast forward to about 10 years ago, I tried to get an autograph thing from Kobe Bryant for my daughter, and they sent me back this awful picture of the team and didn't say anything. Just send me a picture of the team, which was nice, but there was nothing else but that.
I've got to tell you a quick story. Back when I was in the theater, I worked at a summer theater, and one of the productions, this is back when they had touring companies, one of the companies that came in was a production of Bus Stop by William Inge. Playing the cowboy was John Travolta. And this was John Travolta mid Welcome Back, Kotter. In fact, he said to me at one point, I got this script where I'm supposed to play a disco guy. I'm not sure I should do it. And I was like, I don't know. Anyway, he would never sign autographs. So his sister, who was in the play, and I would do playbills. And we'd sign John Travolta, John Travolta, John Travolta. And then we'd go out at all the girls waiting at the stage door and we'd hand them out. And I keep thinking there's some girl who's now in her 80s, no, not in her 80s, but in her 70s, let's say, who has this, I have a John Travolta autograph that's actually a Tom Fontana.
Your autograph is John Travolta's up on eBay everywhere, getting like $1,000. So people are making money off of you.
Okay. When I was at Gersh, when I got onto Homicide Left from the Street, they represented Hulk Hogan. And there was an agent's assistant. He's like, do you want a Hulk Hogan autograph? Because I do them all. And that was his job.
When we talked last time, you had told me a bit about why you started writing, when you started writing. It was it was the white bunny coming down, right?
Yeah, the big white rabbit.
Yeah. When you began writing in earnest, let's say, who were some of your influences?
Well, my major influences, and they're completely different styles of writing, were and are Shakespeare and Chekhov, because they each approach our shared humanity in completely different ways. In terms of contemporary playwrights, I saw production of Michael Weller's play Moonchildren off Broadway at the Theatre de Lis. I was like watching it going, that motherfucker, that's my college life. How did he know this? I had a friend of a friend of a friend, and I wrote to Michael, who's now a dear friend of mine, but I wrote to him, and he wrote me a postcard back. And that's actually one of the reasons that I always write everybody back, because I was so like, oh my God, Michael Weller wrote to me. I still have the postcard in my copy of Moonchildren. And every time he comes over, I go, Michael, have I ever showed you? And he goes like, yeah, I've seen the fucking postcard. Get over it.
It's so funny that you said that, because Shakespeare and Chekhov are my two favorites. And one of the things that I loved about this play that you constructed, that we're talking about, Three Men and Adena, is the teaser is fully an Act 1, Scene 1 from Shakespeare. All the characters come in and the stage is set. And then we go off into the plot of the play. I'm teaching Hamlet right now to my daughter. And I was like, oh, Act 1, Scene 1s in Shakespeare are always difficult because they have to get a lot of information in, and then we go off. Everyone comes to Bayless's desk, and everyone has like a little pithy thing, and we get all of the exposition. We know where we are, and then boom, now we're into the heart of the show. Then Hamlet, or whoever you guys are, Cassius and Brutus, can show up together. And then we get into the Chekhov of it all.
And Chekhov did it too. I mean, the first line in Three Sisters is, it's been 20 years since father died. She is telling her two sisters who know that her father has died. You go, if I wrote that, the actors would be like, come on, Tom. That's like cheesy exposition.
It's when Risley comes in and Yaphet sees him and says, we've had him in here 3 times, we talked to him 10 times, and it gives us a complete background of it, of like what's at stake. And you have 12 hours.
Yeah. I was good in those days.
You're doing fine. You haven't lost your touch. Hey, 5 1s for a 5? And where did that line come from? They've run out of toilet paper.
It's an old joke. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was sitting on the toilet, and she said to the person in the next stall, do you have any toilet paper? And the person said no. And she said, well, then do you have 5 1s for a 5?
Well, how much better can it be than getting a Tallulah Bankhead quote into your script? Did you ever work with her in the theater?
No. I think she was dead by the time I got into the business. But, I mean, I called her. She never returned my calls.
Oh, she would have, Tom. She would have.
Hey, and Tom, the thing about the 500s is so, it's so specific. You know, with Alec Baldwin, that's a different thing completely.
That wasn't there when it would have been Alec, yeah.
Where did that specifically come from? I mean, obviously you do tons of research and stuff.
That did come from research about New York, because Pemberton was from New York. I had no idea about it until I read it. And then I was like, well, that's something this guy would use against Pemberton. Because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for, what are the weapons he has? I know what weapons you two guys had, but what are the weapons that he has?
Oh, he completely devastates us. By the way, the look on Andre's, whatever's happening there, it's a rare thing to see Frank as vulnerable. All of his defense is gone.
God love Andre. There's some actors that would be like, oh, my character would never.
Yeah.
Again, he was a theater actor too. And so he knew what the rhythm of a play was and how it had to keep evolving and devolving.
It's a tour de force. There's a reason that it's on every list of the greatest episodes of television of all time.
That and Lucy with the candy machine.
Exactly.
Neck and neck. Neck and neck.
Neck and neck. You mentioned Playhouse 90 when we started. No one had seen anything like this on television since you were watching something on Playhouse 90, which was already a play that was tried and true.
Not always. Just to give you a little of the history of Playhouse 90, the producer, Fred Coe, would have to produce a new play every week. And sometimes they did adaptations. Sometimes they did plays, and sometimes he would call Patty Chayefsky or Rod Serling or Reginald Rose, and he would say, I've got a kitchen table, 2 chairs, and a refrigerator. I need it by Thursday. I need the script by Thursday. And these guys, they were broke, so they were like, you got it. A lot of those Playhouse 90s and Studio 1s were basically balls out writing by these brilliant, brilliant writers who were kids. They were literally starting out.
And they did those live, right?
Yeah.
P.S., Moses Gunn didn't get nominated, but Gwen Verdon got nominated for Best Supporting Actress for a Drama for this, and Best Supporting Actress for a Comedy as well in the same year.
Gwen was a friend. She came down to do it as a favor, though she did say, I'm not as old as this character, which I, of course, which I loved. It was a nice little part, but it was not, there was nothing significant about it. There was nothing weighty about it. It was a little jokey piece of the show. And when she got nominated, I was like, is it just because they saw her name? And they were like, oh, Damn Yankees. Oh, I liked Damn Yankees. I didn't see the episode of Homicide, but I like Damn Yankees, so I'm going to vote for her. It was strange.
You can't underestimate the sweet charity vote. It's just the way it goes. Yeah. It's just an honor to have you here. We basically just started this podcast just so we could talk to you.
It is true.
And hang out with you. And we got to tell you 2 weeks ago, I mean, I'm sure Kyle did. I know I told you how much I love you and how grateful we are for everything.
I feel the same way.
I'm still reeling from the story that you told about the middle of the road, us crossing our swords and wrestling in the middle of the road.
Oh, my God, yes.
And the Senator, who was it?
Barbara Mikowski? Or
Barbara Mikowski.
Barbara Mikulski.
Calling the police on us, yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been just an absolute delight. We knew it would.
Well, for me too.
We love you, Tom Fontana.
Love you guys.
And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for doing the podcast. It's great. I'm loving it.
Well, thanks for running the show.
I mean, David Simon. But other than that,
thank you, Tom.
I will say this about David. He's always very generous about me hiring him. He was basically leaving the Baltimore paper. He always says nice things about that, which I really appreciate because he's had such a fabulous career.
He adores you.
Hasn't given me a dime.
Unbelievable.
No.
Not a fucking dime.
Not a dime. No, he adores you and he gives you full credit, for everything. And he holds you in the highest regard. And he feels like you taught him how to do it, how to do the job.
But until you get that check in the mail, Tom, from him, I think it's,
It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah. It's bullshit. I mean, and what better way to end this conversation?
We love you, Tom.
All right.
Love you, Tom.
Love you too.
Love you, Tom Fontana.
Love you, Tom.